Welcome to Bold Beginnings, where we teach and show you how God works in our careers, what His purpose is for us, and why we should trust Him in everything that we do. My name is Rita Wilson.
And I am Sandra Fernandez.
And we are here with Jessica Love.
Yes, formerly Jessica Birrell, if you Google me. But Jessica Love is my maiden name, so that's what I go by.
Love it.
Love it. Welcome, Jess.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So happy to have you, girl.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Love your pearls.
Thank you.
They're
These are
gorgeous.
my mother's. So I brought my mother with me today.
Aww.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. So tell us a little bit about you, what you like to do for fun, and just who Jessica is.
Oh, that's complicated. Well, so by career, I'm a dental ceramist. I'm a CDT is my title, which if you know what CDT means, it means dental technologist. So I love art and science and math, and so I'm a mix of all of those. I love creativity. Creativity is mainly who I am and what I do in my career. So I'm the owner of Capture Dental Health and Beauty Center, and Capture Dental Arts is my laboratory. And I've had my laboratory for 15 years, and I've been a dental technologist for 25 years now. Our new dental practice, which is Capture Dental Health and Beauty Center, which is where you and I met, I've had open for a little over 1 year, and it's located in Draper, Utah.
Love that.
We love it there.
Yeah.
That's
We
awesome.
love it.
That's awesome. That's where you've been driving, helping her. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, she's
I love
Working
being
as a
there.
team.
I always tell her, I'm always like, gosh, I just love coming over here. It's so fun.
She's like, Rita, I'm here.
So good.
I'm free.
We're going to get you there
so
more.
good.
I have some ideas for you. We'll talk after.
Love it. Awesome. So, Jessica, we just kind of want to hear about you, your story, your journey, how God has impacted your life, your career, and we're just excited to hear about you because you're amazing. So, tell us a little bit about Jess.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here on Bold Beginnings. First of all, I just want to congratulate both of you for creating a podcast that's celebrating God in our career and just people being bold, like you titled it, Bold Beginnings, because I feel like that's all of us, and where do we start and how do we get to where we're at, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for having me on here with you
Thank you
today.
for coming.
Yeah, I don't know how far back you want to go. I know you and I chatted a little bit,
Yes. Start at your childhood.
Oh, man.
I'm like, start when you were born.
What you want to share, what you feel comfortable
Yes,
sharing.
whatever you
I
want.
think,
Yeah.
where was your beginning at?
Yes.
Well, my beginning was pretty simple. So I was born here in Utah. I had a pretty simple, like normal family life. I'm the first girl out of 6 kids. So I have 2 older brothers. So I'm the third child, which means I'm semi-forgotten about, but it means I'm also not super high maintenance because the oldest and the youngest typically are.
You're probably the most daring.
Yeah. I think the middle kids, we kind of get away with whatever we want because the oldest and the youngest kind of get all the attention, right? So, so there are 6 kids in my family. My parents were super creative people, which I really credit my creativity to them as well. My father was in the Army. My mother was she was a stay-home mom, but that was an overstatement. Like stay-home moms, we had a garden, we had rabbits, we had chickens, we had all kinds of things, and she really loved family. So she sang to us, she taught us music, she taught us Spanish. My mother's side's from Spain, and my father's side's from Scotland. So we are a fun mix. My dad had red hair and freckles, and my mom had black hair and more olive skin. So really beautiful beginning. I really loved that beginning. We lived out by the Provo airport, and we had tons of property just out playing in the dirt and with bugs, and just a mix of building things, and anything we can think of we built and did and created together. My mother was diagnosed with cancer when I was 10 years old, and she was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a non-curable form of a brain tumor that's cancerous. So she was given 2 weeks left to live. And during that time, she fought. She changed her diet. She worked really hard to teach us everything we needed to know as children. Yeah. So I really, at age 6, became like mom. I was going through this motherhood boot camp anyway. So I learned how to sew. I learned how to cook. I learned how to care for my younger sisters at a very young age. She did live 4 years longer, which was incredible.
Oh, that's incredible.
But she lost that battle when I was 10. At that time, we moved to Ohio. And Ohio was beautiful where we lived. It was like rolly hills, green, just, I know not all of Ohio is like that, but where I was beautiful. And she really let us explore different religions. So I'm raised LDS, Mormon, but she let us go to other Bible studies and just support everyone in our community, regardless of their religion.
Yes.
Which was beautiful. I did not know color. I did not understand that we had different colors, that we had different faith. I just knew that we just loved everyone.
Yeah.
And I remember being in school at one point and someone said, like, well, that person's brown. And I looked at myself, I'm trying to hold the crayon box up to me thinking, I think I'm more green. But I'm like, I don't know what color I am. So like, I'm super grateful for that perspective in my childhood, to love all things, be creative, and supportive of each person, regardless of color and faith. So that kind of started that journey for us. From there was a huge roller coaster of events in our life. We moved from Ohio to Idaho. My father remarried like 1 month after my mother passed away. And it
I bet that was hard.
Oh my gosh. Aww. Yeah, it was hard for everyone, mainly because my father loved my mother. And I'm super grateful for that example that I had. I remember them dancing in the kitchen when he would get home from work almost every day. Like he would dip her down, sweep her back up, and just kiss her. And I remember thinking how beautiful that foundation of love was. And that's something that I've really held on to throughout my whole journey in life. But yeah, it was very colorful, I would like to say. A colorful journey. We just, the fit with my stepmother did not work well. She had a son that was my age. It's complicated. Back then, late 80s, early 90s, there was not a lot of support for people who have lost parents, for mixed families. And it just kind of fell apart. So at 13, I moved in with some other family members. And then from them, I bounced from home to home, sometimes youth service centers, sometimes on the streets, until 16. In 16, I actually came not too far from here. I went to Weber Basin Job Corps. And thank goodness it was not Clearfield Job Corps, because Clearfield I heard was really rough.
It's a little rough down
I
there.
heard the Clearfield one was pretty rough. The Weber Basin still was pretty rough. It's a mix of kids that maybe just the school system didn't work for them, or they had tough situations and a hard time sometimes following rules, but some just had no family or tough family situations. So some of the kids were there from Vegas or other areas. Some of them had parents that had passed away. Some of them didn't know their parents. Some of them, their parents were in and out of drugs. Maybe they were in and out of drugs.
Right.
And so a lot of kids were there as a chance to get their high school diploma and try to get back on their feet. And I was told right before this, I had the option to go into foster care or Job Corps. And the Job Corps system, everyone told me, they have a swimming pool. They let you come and go as you please. They have a gym. Yeah, they were telling me all this stuff. And I'm like, dang, this sounds amazing. And you can graduate as early as you want. So I'm like, this sounds cool. And they're like, foster care doesn't even let you eat ice cream. And I'm like, I can't eat ice cream? Like, I'm going to Job Corps, right? So I get to Job Corps, and what we thought was what we were told was the swimming pool was this gross mossy lake, like pond. The gym was pretty cool, but it was a rough environment. The kids there, it's your goal to get you to smoke. They're blowing smoke in your face. I just turned 16. I had to wait till my 16th birthday to go there. And I could tell you, I beat their record on them getting me to smoke. Like, they had a record on how long it takes to get the newbie to smoke, and they could not break me.
That's right.
So it was fun.
You beat that.
Yeah, I beat the record. Doesn't mean I didn't try it, but I beat the record for the length of time that I went for that. So. Some of these kids were tough, and I was really, really shy, really shy. I was a mama's girl. Like, I was always by my mom's side, and here I find myself in Job Corps with kids that have criminal backgrounds from all over, the couple surrounding states. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to survive this. And it's military, right? It's military-based. It's government-funded. And so at 5 a.m., you have someone flipping on your lights, knocking on your door, and you clean the dorms for an hour each morning. You have several bay meetings with your dorm, and there's about 60 girls per dorm. And you go to high school one week, and you take a trade the next week. And the trade options were hilarious. It's totally changed now. But at the time, it was the welding union, the carpentry union, and the painting union.
Which one did you do?
So you could guess. I'm like, well, maybe painting's kind of like art because I love art. So I went into the painting union.
I see that.
Yeah, and I learned drywall, carpeting, tiling, like sandblasting in one of those giant spacesuits with the big sandblaster.
Right.
So I learned all of these crazy tools. I got a 1.5-year apprenticeship in the painting union. It was a form of painting, but definitely not what I was expecting.
Right.
But at the same time, I learned some pretty valuable skills that I've really applied into my life. So I finished my high school diploma in 4 months. I was given all the same high school books as the regular high school system, and I went as fast as I wanted to. And I was super grateful for that opportunity because I feel like high school is a great social opportunity, but sometimes it really slows the progress of kids, like the rate that some kids want to go. And my mind was hungry for that. And I wanted to be adult. I wanted to be free. And my circumstances growing up didn't allow me to be a kid anymore, right? I needed to take care of myself. So I finished that in 4 months. I stayed and got a GED after because it gave me a bonus of $500. And they let you save money so that you can get an apartment and get out onto your feet.
Oh, okay, cool.
So at 16, I was done pretty much with the system, but you have to have parent permission to leave. And I could not get parent permission to leave the center. So I ended up becoming dorm president, and I managed a group of 60 girls in this dorm. I know.
Perfect
Here,
girl.
I like this.
I was like,
all of
she's
it.
like, I can't leave. I'm gonna run this.
Yeah,
Just so
exactly.
everyone-
Well, I was like this shy Mormon girl, right? I maybe had a little bit of exposure to alcohol and the smoking there, but in general, I was like, I don't know if I belong here. And here I'm now running these girls that I'm like, I don't know if they're going to kill me or rape me. But one or the other, like, I'm like, let's just keep moving forward and hope neither happens. But I really learned to love these girls there. And I was so afraid to stand up in front of them and tell them what our responsibilities were for the day. But it slowly helped build that confidence. That we're all shy. Like, not a lot of us feel comfortable standing up there in front of other people. So that's kind of where that foundation started from, of if you can't beat it, join it in a sense, right? Like, and then lead it and make it great.
Jessica, I love that. If you can't beat it, join it and then lead it.
Yeah, and create it, build it into something that you want it to become. So a lot of us kids were there, like I was there through Christmas and through birthdays. And I didn't have a family, so they became my family. And so I do remember sitting there at Christmas once. I'm like, I have no gifts, no Christmas tree. And Job Corps, they feel bad for you and get donated gifts. And they gave me this giant purple duffel bag. And I was like, I hate purple, but okay, cool, I got a gift, right? But I did understand, like I really learned a lot about those kids there and the different upbringings and the backgrounds that they came from. And sometimes to get off center, you can't leave center unless you're 18 or you have adult permission. So you really are gated in. Sometimes they take you on a bus out into the public to like go Walmart shopping, which we're so excited about. We used to like hold our hand up in the bus and make it look like we were handcuffed in. So it was like a prisoner bus as we were driving down the street just to see the looks we would get. So, sometimes I would go to Ogden and go to AA meetings because they would let me get off center. And anyone that was battling with alcohol had the opportunity to go to those meetings.
You're like,
I hadn't really touched alcohol. So I'm like, sweet, I can get off center. So I would go to these AA meetings, and they're adults, right? And you would listen to their stories and challenges and their emotions of trying to overcome addiction and be better. And I just thought, how beautiful, like how beautiful of an experience to see people who are humbled and trying and vulnerable and willing to admit addictions, right? And it would come around the room to me, and I would be like, I'm not ready to talk yet. It just passes right around the room. But so I really learned to love people. I'm like, I'm just not ready yet. I'm sorry.
That's hilarious.
So I really loved the opportunity to see different people. And I felt like I learned to love people from all different walks of life at a really young age. So
what an exposure for a little girl, Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that you're like, I can't leave, so I'm just gonna run it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I left there and moved down to Utah. I got my first apartment with 17. I was granted permission to leave just a little bit after my 17th birthday. And I was
going to say, who granted you permission?
Well, the center helped me force either an emancipation or they could grant permission. So we kind of put pressure on them. My dad was so busy with his emotions at that time that he just wasn't able to show up and be present as a father in my life. And the center's like, we don't know what to do with you. You've completed everything.
Right. You
right?
run us.
They're like,
right.
I know.
Right.
So it's like, I might as well get employed there, So they were very supportive in helping me get on my own feet. But then I run into this challenge now. It's, like mid-90s, right? I think it's 96 is when I graduated. So I graduated a year earlier than my traditional class. I would have been 97 to date me, to show my date. But anyways, I got my first apartment, but in trying to get an apartment, you cannot get an apartment legally unless you're 18. And I tried. So place after place, I'm like, someone's got to give me a chance. I need a place. Yeah. And I ended up actually living in my car for a little while. So back then we did not have cell phones. I mean, maybe if you were super cool, you had a giant box that you could pull like the antenna out of. But most of us had pagers, and we thought that was pretty cool. But it almost was like drug dealer-ish if you had a pager, So I remember parking my car in front of a friend's house and plugging this extension cord into her house to plug in my alarm clock so that I could make it to work on time. And it was so funny. Once I made it to work late because someone unplugged my extension cord. I'm like, try explaining that to your boss. You're like, someone unplugged the extension cord that ran to my car. So, for me, I wasn't really frustrated that I was living in my car. Honestly, I was so excited. Yeah. I was so excited that I had an opportunity to start my own life.
Yes.
That I was free. I had done everything I needed to get my diploma and got money saved up, and I was just ready to start my life. Yeah. So for me, it was very freeing. So anyways, I found out, I took one of my friend's kids with me to interview for an apartment. And they didn't ask my age because they thought it was my daughter. So I was able to get into my first apartment. I'm like, thank goodness for that.
You are really interesting.
So I got into this first apartment, and my first apartment, I don't even remember if I had a pillow. I know I had clothes. I had no bed. I didn't have a blanket because I did use my clothes to cover me up. And I remember walking into this house. It was just like this apartment that was just an open slate for me. Yeah. And I was so excited. Like the feeling of freedom that I can build whatever I want. Yes. Like this is mine. Like I have a home. And so for me, it was beautiful. Like I really feel like that perspective has taught me so much in life. Yes. Like it doesn't matter what circumstances we go through. Yes. We have the opportunity to make it whatever we want.
I'm like, you better preach. You are preaching right now.
Yeah. And sometimes where we feel like we have so little is an opportunity to create so much, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So anyways, from there, I ended up working 3 jobs like crazy. I was working around the clock. Sometimes I would waitress until 2 a.m. and then get back up and go paint houses at 7 a.m.
Nice.
So my first official job was painting houses since I had my apprenticeship through the union. And it was not the pretty painting like murals. It was, you wear the painter's like hairnet, the respirator, and you go in with the air compressors and actually spray paint the walls and paint commercial homes. So I was this I was barely 100 pounds, maybe 95, 100 pounds at the time, 5'4", showing up on a construction site with all these guys to paint houses. And you can imagine they were not happy at all about it. They're like, you gotta be kidding me. I got to work with this little girl. And so they intentionally worked harder just to see if I could keep up. And so I had to work so hard to keep up with these guys. And a couple months in, I finally won them over and became pretty good friends with them. But
they're like, we have to test her. This is the test trial.
Well, part of it's like, this girl can't, she can't show me up, right? I'm a man. And I'm like, she's just a little girl. So intentionally, they leave the air compressor sometimes at job sites. So I had to figure out how to get it in my car, and I could not lift that thing. So on occasion, I just drag it down the street a couple blocks to get to the next house because I could not lift it. But so it was fun. So I did work around the clock, and I didn't really. I have family, but at that time in my life, because of a lot of factors. One, the religious. The religious foundation, sometimes when people are different, we naturally push them away. And I see that in a lot of different faiths, right? Yes. Because of I was labeled now the black sheep, Job Corps, they smoked, they did different things, and I didn't live at home. So I really feel at that time either I intentionally pulled away from my family or they just chose not to involve me in their life. I really didn't have a family for several years during that time in my life. And I didn't believe in God as much at that time, too. I wouldn't say that I didn't believe in God because I still found myself praying.
Right.
But I definitely felt abandoned. Yes. And I'm sure that you guys can relate to that. Part of me was like, why would a God take a mother away from 6 kids? Like 6 little kids. My youngest sister was still nursing. Like, why would God do that? And then why would God leave me alone to deal with all of those things? So, sorry, you guys are going to make me cry. So, in thinking about that, there were times where I'm like, if you are there, God, like, you don't answer for me, right? You're not in my corner. Right. And that's kind of what we were talking about. Yes. I'm alone in this journey. So I worked so many jobs and just was barely making it, and I didn't have that parent figure to guide me or direct me. A lot of times it was different groups of friends. And so I would look at different types of social environments, and I would see the kids that got into drinking really heavy, or, marijuana was like the hardcore drug at that time, and nowadays it's like the new cigarette, right? But I watched the different lifestyles that they created, and a lot of those kids that got into the drugs just stayed there. And their motivation to create something with their life just wasn't as strong as mine. And once I went hiking with this group of kids that they were like the wild guys, right? We'd take snowboards and just go down the face of a random mountain. And I had never had snowboarding lessons, but I'm like, why not? We're going to do this. And it didn't always turn out beautiful, but I tried. Or we go cliff diving. And, we just do random things. But these guys, I went with them once, and we hiked up the face of this mountain at night and set up on the top of this mountain peak and just sat there in silence watching the sun come up. And that moment for me was like, you don't need chemicals to create a high.
Right.
You need to be present in life.
Yes.
And when you actually ground yourself in those moments, like that kind of high is so beautiful and so rewarding and builds such positive, long-lasting effects.
Yes.
Higher than you can achieve with anything else, like
Absolutely.
the drugs. So for me, that helped me realize I don't want to follow the path of some of those people, but I want to seek more natural highs, and that there is something beautiful in my life ahead, and I need to figure out what that is.
Right.
And so I applied to school. I applied to UVU at the time, and I met with them, and they told me, you're too poor. And I don't think they tell kids that nowadays. But I'm like, that's messed up. Like, help me find a way to get my college degree.
Right.
And they're like, I'm sorry, you just don't have enough money. And we don't see how you could still come here and afford to pay rent and afford my life.
Right.
And so I would go back, save up a little bit more, and go apply again. And then they would come back and tell me the same thing. I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to tell me that. I don't think you're supposed to tell me I'm too poor to go to college. So I started to accept that maybe college wasn't a path that I could go down. So anyways, long story short, someone told me, go be a dental hygienist. There's a technical school, like a trade school. I could probably get funding pretty easy. So I went and I applied to this school, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to stick my hands in people's mouths. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want to be picking out their food that's been growing there for who knows how long. So when I went to this school, I saw the dental technology program. And their entrance exam includes a drawing. It tests your hand dexterity. It was a form of art. And I love art. And art has always been a part of me. And so I took this entrance exam, and they worked with me on the funding. And I just fell in love with it. Like, we're sculpting little works of art. And I don't think people realize that teeth are personality. They're different shapes and sizes, and each person's different. Not one of them is the same. And for me, that's so beautiful that it's a new form of art, a new canvas for each person. And so it was never boring. It was always a new challenge, a new obstacle. So I fell in love with that, and I found myself working. I went to school during the day and started working for a dental laboratory at night. And I picked up the skill really fast. And so by 2 years, I was making a 6-figure income. Oh, wow. And so it was
How
crazy.
How old were you at this point?
I was 18 when I started school.
Okay, nice.
So by my 20s, I was already, maybe I was 19. I was 19 when I started at the laboratory. And so by 2 years in, so by 21, 22-ish, I had already, I was making a good income.
Yeah.
And then, I was married. I married young, and I decided to have my first baby, and they gave me a raise, and I went back to work 4 weeks after I had her. And that was really hard for me, because I remember my mother and that childhood that we had, and she was so present and just there for us. And the feeling of that home was so complete. It was beautiful. So in the back of my head, I really struggled with how do I be a career mom and how do I be a mother to my children, because I love motherhood. And so I did have to go back to work full time. My husband, he just didn't know his career path, so financially we could not afford that. And so the better I did, I became one of their top cosmetic ceramists. And, my raise kept going up, and then I had another baby, and they offered me some more. And finally, I'm like, you know what? You cannot put a price on your children. We just can't. And children, especially under age 5, don't know if you're rich or poor. They just know if their mom's there. Oh. And so I set aside the career, and I rented out my home, moved back into a tiny little apartment, and told my husband, just figure out what you want to do, and I'll support you. But I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here for our kids. And I remember a lot of people thinking, you're nuts. You're nuts. And I'm like, you know what? My kids, I only get so many years with them, and then they're gone. And it's not about the money, right?
Yes.
But about being present for those experiences. So I left after I had my second. I still did some work from home for a little while. I had my third baby. I stopped there, which is really rare for Utah. I would have kept going if I could have had more, but 3 was all I could medically have.
3 was good.
I'm tired.
I really wanted 4. Yes.
3 fills up the backseat.
3 just makes you crazy. 1, you're like, oh, this is cool, right?
Yeah.
And you learn and you grow so much.
Yeah. 2,
you give them a friend, and then you start to learn what it's like to juggle multiple things. 3, you can't juggle anything anymore. You're like, whatever goes. I really learned that. I really learned, my poor third child, he's like, Mom, Jessica. And I'm like, I'm sorry. So anyways, we always joke around, did anyone get a picture of him growing up? There's so many pictures of the first child, but... Anyway, so that time when I had him, it was a very complicated pregnancy and a really complicated delivery. And then when he was born with an immature digestive system. And so he cried, and he would not sleep more than 20 minutes at a time. That's when the economy tanked in 2008, 2009. And my husband lost his job. That whole company went under. And we were faced, multiple people in our neighborhood with foreclosure or bankruptcy. Oh, wow. And for me, I just don't believe in that. I believe we committed to the bank for that home, and we're going to fight for it. And so I opened a laboratory from my home. And I remember I met with my old boss, and I told him, I think I'm going to open a laboratory from my home. I looked at the price of daycare. I looked at my 3 children, and I can't leave them. Yeah. I just can't leave them. And to go work somewhere and put that many hours in to cover the cost of daycare and what I would bring home at the end of the day is just a joke, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I really wanted my cake. I want to eat it too. How do I be there for my kids and still support them? And nowadays, there's so many beautiful opportunities to do that. So I opened a lab from my home, and I can tell you, you and I were talking about this. Not one person was in my corner. Not one person was like, yes, go for it. You can do this, right?
Hi. You can come on in.
Yeah, so instead it was you're crazy, you're nuts, what are you thinking? And I was surprised that almost every person around me was actually not supportive. And I was super prayerful in this decision, and I knew I needed to do this. I knew that opening this laboratory was more than just a laboratory or providing for my kids, but it was part of something bigger than I understood at the time, and I just needed to do it. And I remember telling my husband, like, I know I just need to do it. I know it's a part of something that I don't even understand. I just need to do it. Right. And so I took out a small loan for $15,000, which is crazy because one oven is $10,000 and each little bottle of porcelain is $50. So I barely had enough money to get just a few pieces of equipment, and I outsourced everything else until I could slowly build up the equipment that I needed.
In your basement.
Yeah. And I started in one room in my unfinished basement, finished that, and eventually expanded to 1,500 square feet in my home to where I had employees coming in my home. And I loved it. There's, I've had other stories on that. I won't go off on that too much, but I left my door open during work hours, and my employees would come in, they change shoes, and we had their indoor shoes or slippers or whatever they wanted. And sometimes they'd be in my fridge eating my leftovers, but it was family.
Yes.
And that really helped me see that your work environment is family. It is personal.
Yes.
But I built that up, and I was still shy. I opened it on my 30th birthday.
Oh, wow.
And I was incredibly, incredibly shy.
You're a new woman in your 30s.
Yes.
So you know.
I really feel like 30s is just this defining stage.
Yes.
Because we're no longer, looked at as this young adult. We're now all of a sudden, a mature woman, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, this is my defining point where I can really define this path. So... but I was telling Rita, oh my gosh, I would go to the grocery store and I would see a neighbor and they'd say hi and I turn red. That's how shy I was. And my bishop used to ask me to speak, and I would be like, ask me again, I'm going Catholic.
You're so I can't do this.
I cannot speak in public. Don't ask again. So anyways, I was so shy. So even to talk to my doctors that were my clients on the phone, I was really nervous. And I love to tinker. I love to dissect things and see how they work. Math and art and science all go together for me, which is like right and left brain. And so I started dissecting our dental materials and was determined to find a way to make these teeth look beautiful. And I'm like, there has to be a more natural approach. There has to be a way where we can make this material look so natural. And so I started dissecting teeth. I took pictures of them. I put them into Illustrator and Photoshop and created, patterns and tried to dissect how does nature create these mathematical patterns and how can I better replicate that?
Right.
And then how can I use these materials to reflect that vitality and life that we have in natural teeth. And as I started to do that, 3 years in, companies started to ask me to teach how I was getting the results with their products. And I was telling Rita, I had a company fly me to California, and they said, hey, we want you to be a public speaker for us. We want you to teach our products. And I didn't tell them I was shy. No way am I going to say that. And I'm like, thank you. I'll think about it. And I remember this company's like, she'll think about it. No one tells us.
Do you know who we are?
Exactly. And I was flying home, and I opened up the Delta magazine at the time, and there was this article that said the number one thing that holds successful women back is their fear of public speaking. Yes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, shut up. I don't want to hear this, put it away, right? And so I go home and I open up my scriptures, and I love to just, I'm not one that loves to follow the rules 100%. Yeah. So sometimes they're like, you need to read your scriptures from start to back. No, that's not me.
Yeah.
I just open them up and let it fall wherever it falls, and that's where I read. So I open my scriptures up, and I read this verse that says, God gives men weaknesses to keep them humble.
Yes.
And when you humble yourself before God, your weaknesses can become your strength. And I remember thinking, I am too shy. And I just prayed to Heavenly Father. I'm like, I am so shy. I cannot do public speaking. I turn red and then purple, and then I cry and I can't speak. I'm like, but if this is what you want me to do, I will do it. But you have to help me find a way.
Yes.
And so I remember watching all these YouTube videos on public speaking and how to overcome fears. And they're saying, never ever tell people you're shy and all these things. And the more I watched these videos, the more fearful I actually became.
Yeah.
The harder it became for me. And finally I was like, you know what? I am shy. I don't care if I stand up there and tell people I'm going to turn red and purple and maybe pass out. But I am so happy to be here today because I love what I do. I love what I do.
Right.
And I'm here for you because I want you to love what you do too. And the more I embraced who I was instead of trying to run from it or change it, the more that became my power. And that's why I just love to encourage people. Your voice is so important.
Right.
And if you're afraid, don't be afraid. Like, it's okay. We're all afraid. We all turn red. We all get embarrassed. If you picture everyone naked when you're up there, it doesn't help. It still doesn't help. But I think just accepting who you are and saying, like, I'm going to turn red and get up there and be like, I'm going to be red. You're going to see 5 different shades of red and maybe a couple shades of purple, but we're going to get through this, right?
Yes.
Like, it just helped me relax and feel comfortable with that. So I went to California and gave my first lecture at Lab Day West. And I remember being in that hotel room, like, pacing back and forth. I'm like, what did I just get myself into? Why did I just commit to public speaking? I can't do this. And then I'm like, no, you can do this. You get out the door and you get down there. You can do this. And then I'm like, I can't do this. Never mind. As I get to the door, I was like back and forth. And finally I'm like, I just have to go. And I got down there, and I remember my voice being a little bit shaky, and I was so nervous. And then as I started teaching these other technicians color theory and anatomy, I just forgot about it. It had so much fun. And I've been a public speaker now, I think 12, 13 years.
Awesome.
And I've had the chance to be one of the first female laboratory speakers in Italy.
Yes,
I've been able to travel around the world. And I was telling you, in 2018, I was voted one of the most influential women in dental technology. And,
yes,
I've been able to be recognized in some ways along the way, but really, for me, it's just been an opportunity to connect with other people and inspire them and build that passion and artistry for dental technology.
You're giving me chills.
So I really feel like when you talk about how does God lead us in our path and in our career, I knew I needed to do this, but I didn't know why. And I really feel like, for me, sometimes people are like, oh, God tells you what to do. Heavenly Father is like, Jessica, go do this. And it doesn't work that way for me. It doesn't. For me, I just sometimes don't know. I don't know. And sometimes that can be interpreted as abandonment. And sometimes I have moments where it's like, why can't you tell me what to do? Heavenly Father, like, I'm praying, let my hands be your hands, and I will do your work. Just tell me what it is you want me to do, and I will do it. And I never once in my life have I had, like, Heavenly Father say, okay, go do this. But instead, I have to make a decision. So I find myself often on the fence, like, should I go left or right? And I'm waiting sometimes for an answer, and I don't get it. And I feel like sometimes we stay in that place for too long waiting. And instead, I'm starting to learn, just jump off the fence and decide. And you'll know once you jump off if it's right. And I feel like that's how Heavenly Father has really worked in my life. He doesn't tell me what to do. I wish he would. I wish he would make it easy. Like, just, I'll do it. Like, just tell me.
Here are all the answers.
But I really feel like a lot of times it's that free agency that we have, and that part of being human, of the sometimes making mistakes, or sometimes opening a door that maybe wasn't the right one, and we're like, oop, nope, never mind. And then you know which one is the right one. So anyways, I followed that, and I've learned that this is the direction I needed to go, and I never knew public speaking would be a part of it. But now I could tell you, in the dental community, I love those people, and I love to be there and inspire them. And it's gone beyond that to now creating this dental center where we can work on creating smiles and confidence. Like, what beautiful works of art to give people the opportunity to smile. So we talk about, like, challenges. And you and I were talking about this and had such a beautiful call before in preparing for this. But
awesome.
Like, you're never going to be free of those challenges, right? So I had this hill to get up, to get in. Like, now I need to provide for my kids, create a company. It was not beautiful starting that in the basement of my home. It was, people think, oh, great, you get to, like, make cookies and do laundry and make money at the same time. I'm like, no. I get to work while my kids are throwing up on my lap. I get to, figure out how to finish layering the crown while I'm sitting in that throw up. And then I get to go cry in the bathroom and try to figure out how to be strong and show up for my kids and keep being that mother and provider at the same time. And honestly, that was one of the biggest challenges I have gone through. And I feel like in those challenges, it does bring us to our knees more. And in the time, it feels like it's hard and heavy, and we can feel abandoned. But I'm learning that those are the moments that bring us closer to God and help us really create that connection stronger to Him, to really be open to know what that path is. So I've learned that challenges are not a curse, but God's way of saying, I'm going to help you grow a little bit more because there's something I need you to know. And honestly, that sucks sometimes, right? I'm like, I'm good. I've had enough challenges. Like, I'm out. Like,
you're like, where's the easy road?
I've reached max capacity for my lifetime. Can we just have it easy the rest of the time?
You're like, Lord, again?
Yeah. So I definitely feel like I've had this dental laboratory 15 years now. So I just turned 45 April 6th and celebrated 15 years.
And don't look it.
Oh yeah. It depends on the day. I feel good. Honestly, I feel good with where I'm at. I have 3 kids, 3 beautiful kids. My 2 older ones are out of the home now, 22 and 19, and a 15-year-old left at home.
Aww.
And, it's been hard raising them along the way, and sometimes they feel like I'm busy and maybe didn't give them attention. But at the same time, I was at all their school events. I was there for them when they were sick. And I think that I hope in some way I've empowered them to reach out and follow your dreams no matter how hard the obstacles are, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about this, Rita, because it's like, okay, you think, okay, I've got through this. Now it should be smooth sailing, right? And then just this last year, I entered probably one of the biggest obstacles of my life. And I keep saying that with each one, so maybe there's more to come. I don't know. But I've really learned, like, I've built this whole company. So I built this new beautiful center in Draper, and it houses a dental practice. In the state of Utah, I can own a dental practice, which I'm super excited about because we have the opportunity to really work with patients. And so many people are afraid of the dentist. So many people are afraid to smile. And so having the opportunity to sit someone down in the chair and say, like, I'm going to get you there. Like, I'm going to get you to where you cannot stop smiling. And you're going to wreck your car because you're looking in the rearview mirror so you can't stop smiling so hard. So it's been beautiful. But in the process of building this new center, I can tell you it was 3 years of trying to figure out what building, what financing, how to get all organized. And it has been one door after another that has slammed in my face. And I've had moments where I'm like, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to do. Maybe this is my sign that I should quit because nothing's going smooth and nothing's working out. And I love the book by Matthew McConaughey, Red Light, Green Light. I think it's very simple, but there's key things in there that you recognize those moments, or like the person that steps into your life and gives you that word, or like our call. There are things you said that I needed to hear. Recognizing our life path and when those things work well and open those doors. But what do you do when nothing's opening? What do you do? What do you do when you try left and right and you're getting no action, no movement? And that's really where I felt I've been the last couple years. And I feel like it's bipolar. Because one day it's like everything goes like this. And you're like, oh my gosh, like 20 different things in one day, really? And then the next day it's like some little gifts, some little beautiful things. And so I'm like, okay, does this mean keep going? Or does this mean stop? Why I'm ahead? And so I've been in this state of like, do I keep pushing this path? Do I keep following this? And it's hard because I don't feel, once again, like I have the answers all the time. But honestly, like in speaking with you, it's been a great reminder. I think that sometimes we're not going to get that answer right away. And we just have to keep pushing. And it's those little daily things that we know we need to do that still create forward movement.
Confirmation.
And I feel like sometimes we're waiting for these big signs to show us you're doing the right thing. But it's not. Like it's honestly that process of I'm just going to show up today. I'm going to get out of bed today.
One foot in front of the other.
If I got 2 push-ups, that counts as my workout today. So I'm at least moving forward, right? And just keep making progress. I feel like that's where most of us actually struggle. Because we're waiting for big things. Instead of like, I'm just going to keep doing these daily little things.
And in the process, I feel like we lose that momentum. And then we just stop.
We do. Because if we don't see results, I feel like that's our human nature, right? We need to feel accomplished. And we need to see daily accomplishment. And what do you do when that turns into years of seeing very little movement? I feel like that's where Heavenly Father really tests our faith. And I feel like that's where a lot of us end up drifting. Because we're like, you just don't feel as spiritually connected anymore. And it's so easy to have the world influence you, right? Whatever's on the TV or music, all those things that fill our thoughts without us even paying attention to it. And then next thing you know, we're in this phase where we just don't quite know. Or maybe we're a little bit numbed out. Or maybe we just don't feel the motivation to get up anymore, right? And then you get to that point and then it's like, how do I get out of this? And I feel like those obstacles, this recent obstacle that I'm going through right now, I left that 20-year marriage. Our personalities just were distractive to each other, but we are such good friends and such good co-parenters. We'll have a whole nother episode on marriage and divorce later on. But you can have a very, very beautiful divorce, be positive and loving to each other.
So.
But I decided to remarry a little while ago, and I thought I was following Heavenly Father's path, and it has become a whole new set of challenges and obstacles that has almost destroyed everything I've built over the last 15 years. Wow. And I never thought that one moment, one choice like that could destroy everything I've built. Yeah. And so I've had moments where last year I'm like, I don't know if I want to get out of bed, right? And it's like, what do you do when you're in that stage? And and I feel like we need to be real with that. Yeah. Because you know what, we talk about motivation and like you can get up, you can have the power, you can have the strength, keep pushing forward. But when we're being real with who we are as humans, let's face it, we have days we don't want to get out of bed.
Right.
Or,
hard.
Or we just don't know how to get out of a situation. Or how can we have the strength to overcome whatever obstacle we're going through. Yeah. And I feel like that's where real strength comes from.
Yes.
Because that's hard. It's hard to say, I'm going to work out today or I'm going to get up at 5:30 a.m. because if I don't, I know I'm going to be behind.
Right.
And I'm going to get up when I don't feel like getting up. And I feel like it's so easy to say like, oh yeah, you can inspire and motivate other people, but when that's you and that's you in that bed, like how do you get up?
Sometimes you question yourself. You're like, what did I do that now I'm in this position?
Right. Yeah.
You know, and again, with that abandonment, you know, you start feeling like, wait a minute, I thought I was doing good. And then now what? And then there's almost a sense of fraud that you feel because you're this peppy person, happy, motivating everybody. And now you're the person needs that for yourself, you know? And I know this because I went through almost like 3 years of that. And it was rough. And I was like, Lord, did you leave me?
Yeah.
You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you know? Yeah. But through that, I remember I was praying one time, and when I say praying, I mean like I was pretty upset.
That counts too.
And I remember the Lord said, because I trust you. And I just remember thinking like, wow, like you trust me with this anxiety and depression? You know, like who am I for you to like trust me with that? You know what I mean? He's like, no. And I just felt the sense of like, don't give up. Like, I know you're not going to give up. I know you're not going to give into it, but you have to keep going, you know? And I remember clearly taking almost like a badge of honor. And now instead of being like, why me? Like, why do I have this depression? Why do I have this anxiety? Why do I have to go through this? You know, it was almost like, wow, I get to experience what this feels like, you know, so I can also be able to have compassion. Because before, my thought with depression and anxiety was just change your mindset. Listen to something positive. Like, it'll get you up and going.
Get over it.
Yeah. And during those years, it really got me, it really made me very compassionate for that, you know, and I learned a lot through that. And for me, it was a symptom of a deeper problem, you know, and so if it wasn't for, I think of it like a car, when your check engine light comes on, you know, and this check engine light was coming on, and I never wanted to like lift up the hood to see what was really going on. I was just kind of like, all right, well, something's not right. And I kind of just carried it every day, until finally, you know, he's like maybe we should like lift the hood up, you know, and that's kind of where I'm just so grateful, because if I wouldn't have gone through that moment of anxiety and having those moments where I couldn't get out of bed in the morning, I wouldn't have ever found healing from all the underneath stuff that came with that process.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes when you are a natural leader too, we feel like people look at us to lead us, and that's a whole nother,
like you're speaking to me.
Yeah, it's a whole nother set of obstacles, right? Because now all of a sudden we're put on this pedestal that we're positive and we've got it all together, and we lead and we inspire other people. You know, like I get to show up at work and I get to lead my team, and my job is to inspire them to help build a great company. And then I go home and I lead my kids and I'm building positivity. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm broken.
Yes.
Like I'm broken. And I finally, last year, I went to this divorce group, and I got there and they're like, why are you here? And I'm like, look, I get to be positive at work. I get to be positive at home. I'm like, I want to surround myself with some possibly clinically depressed people that are mourning divorce, and I want to cry for a bit. Right? Like, I actually want to be real with where I'm at, but I did find it hard to get out of bed, because here I had opened myself up to the idea of marriage and where Heavenly Father had led me, and it led me to one of the most catastrophic moments I could never imagine coming.
Right.
And I found myself in bed like, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? And I can even tell you, like, I'm still going through this process right now. But I did have my divorce attorney yell at me at one point, and he's like, do you love pain? Do you love inflicting yourself with all of this stress? And he's like, quit, give up, walk away, make it easy, leave your companies, file bankruptcy, just walk away. And I'm like, no, because this is what I'm meant to do.
Right.
But then it's like, I agree, when you're in the middle of those moments of like anxiety or depression, and those of you that are going through that, my heart's out to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is hard.
So
and
hard.
and you know, that, like I said, it did help me really. Yeah, I've had hard times, and sometimes it takes a year to feel like I want to get out of bed. But I just keep doing it. Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Form habits. Get a job. Get a schedule, and get things that you have to commit to show up to,
Right.
even if you don't want to.
Right.
And then you just keep doing it.
Keep doing it.
And eventually you can start to find the courage to get out of bed again. Eventually maybe you start liking the gym and the push-ups, right? And eventually maybe you start liking your job or the people, but you have to surround yourself with people that are rooting for you.
Right.
Because it's really easy to get in those moments and feel like no one's in your corner and you're all alone, right? We talked about that. Like God doesn't always give us a hug when he needs us. When we need it, we can't feel that, but he's there.
Yes.
And I really feel that. There's a really beautiful scripture, John chapter 14. And that's what I like. Every time I'm in the temple, I open up that one. It always opens up to the same one. And he said that in John chapter 14, he said that God will not leave you comfortless. And he will come to you, and yet in a little while, when the world chooses to see him no more, because you choose to see him, he lives, and so you live also. And those scriptures, to me, what it means to me is that when we choose to see him and incorporate him into our life, we're expanding our energy and our power beyond what we can do alone and reaching outside of ourselves for strength.
Yeah.
And whether that be God or the people around you or Motiversity on YouTube, which thank you, Motiversity.
Oh my gosh.
That has got me out of bed every day for like the last year. Yeah, I love all of you that are using your voice, and like Rita, like creating this. You are inspiring and empowering other people to get through hard things, and you will get through it.
Yes,
you will get through it.
It will
Just
always work
one
out.
step after another, but find other people to help yell at you, even if it's Motiversity.
Push you through
Man,
it.
thank goodness for those. You know, Motiversity, I was telling you, I think it finally paid off.
Yeah.
Because I've been listening to those things, and I feel like every morning those words were meant for me.
Yes.
And it's so beautiful to hear someone else say something so perfect. I'm like, how did you know I needed to hear that?
To hear that.
And I think it's because we're all going through similar things at different stages in life. We all can lean in and gain something from each other. But a couple weeks ago, I woke up and I sat up out of bed at like 6 a.m. with a voice in my head saying, you will not be defeated. And I realized fear of unknown, fear of challenges, fear of obstacles really can cripple us. And just knowing that even if we fall, we're not going to be defeated. That's why I was telling Rita, like, a Spartan race, people sign up for, right? People sign up for this. Like, we sign up. Yeah. Life is a Spartan race. And we're going to go over hot coals, and it's going to hurt. And we're going to go under barbed wire. We're going to get stuck in the mud. We're going to get mud in our face. We're going to get bloody, cut, and we're going to have walls that are too hard to climb.
Yeah.
And sometimes we cannot climb them alone. And if it's Heavenly Father or someone we reach out to, we can get over those walls. And when we get to the end, we're going to come across that finish line. And you look at those Spartans when they come across the finish line, what are they doing?
They're running. They're happy.
Yeah, they are screaming, bloody.
I wasn't
and
that
muddy.
Spartan though. The girl's like, Rita, are you gonna run? You're at the end. I was like, I just did a 5K with 20 obstacles, and you want me to run to the end? I'm walking to get my T-shirt.
Whatever it is,
Yes.
that feeling of accomplishment and going through a hard challenge,
Yes.
like that personal freedom that we experience when we make it through it.
Yes.
Like that's what we need as humans.
That's the high you've been chasing, Jess.
Thank you so much for
I love that.
sharing your story.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing. I was like, I have questions. No, she's answered all of it. So you've done a really good job. Thank you so much. Like this was awesome, and I think you've inspired a lot of people.
Yeah.
So and we're gonna have to have you back on for sure because you were.
We're gonna have you back on for the divorce and relationship. That's really good.
There is beauty in both, and there's a way to come out positive at both ends.
We will.
Absolutely. I love it. I'm definitely super inspired.
I love it.
I always love talking to you, Jess, just being like in your presence. Even like the people that you work with, I know that everybody's just so invested in the mission and in what you are doing and what you want to create. And I think that is so powerful, and being able to translate that as a leader to your people is so amazing. Yeah.
Yes, we're definitely going to have you back.
Yeah.
You're
Well, I feel like really what it comes down to is honoring what you feel. And I know as a mother, I've tried to teach my children to look for the things that bring you energy that you feel good about, and pay attention to the things that pull that down.
Yes.
And like that helps you open the doors, and
It does.
like just keep feeding yourself that energy, and you will naturally just grow and elevate until that light keeps growing, and it just can't help but radiate into the lights around you, right?
I love it.
Well, I love being here with you,
Yes.
and I really just want to thank both of you for what you're doing.
Yes, thank you
and
for
trying
coming.
to inspire other women and people out there in their career, but also faith. Like, it doesn't matter what religion you are.
Right.
What it really comes down
matter.
to is working to be a better human being and lifting others up along the way.
Yes.
So
thank
you
Jess.
for what you're doing.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Of course. We'll definitely have to have you back.
Is there anything else that like that is so important to you that you live by that you would want to share with our listeners? Just like let's say one or two.
Oh, yeah,
nuggets.
so many things. I really feel like as I was reflecting on what could I add in being here today was that Heavenly Father doesn't always tell you what to do. He waits for you to decide.
Yes.
Right.
And then you'll know along the way if it was wrong or right.
Yeah.
I like
And
that.
so when you're on a
know
fence
along
and
the
you
way.
don't know, just step off one
Just
way or
do
the
it.
other. And
like
you'll know
that.
pretty quick if it was the right choice or not.
That's
So,
a good one.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to write that down.
Thank you, Jess.
I love it.
Thank you
Jess,
for
you're
being here.
awesome. You're awesome. We
Thank
have
you,
to have you
ladies.
back. This was a great conversation. All right, guys. You heard it. She was awesome.
Well, thank you, ladies.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you for having me.
Of
And
course.
I'm excited to see more of your podcast.
Yes.
Thank you, Jess.
Yeah.
Remember to be bold
Be brave
and be better. See you guys soon.